visible.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Natarajan, for including me to be a part of this IC with such an esteemed panel. And today I'll be speaking about whatever I've learned from you and I've seen you do. So as we all know that ocular trauma constitutes one of the important causes of visual loss and subsequent disability. And intraocular foreign bodies further complicate these penetrating injuries. They can be different types. They can be either toxic or they could be inert in the form of metallic as well as organic foreign bodies. So the effect of the intraocular foreign body on the eye could be just mechanical with the velocity and its size. It could be chemical effects. It could be an infection, like here you can see a hypopyon here and an inflamed eye. Or it could be in the form of sympathetic ophthalmia, which usually occurs 3 weeks to 3 months in the other eye. So the symptoms that patient can come to you could be just an asymptomatic. They could just come in for a routine checkup and you incidentally notice a foreign body. They could have pain, redness, or a drop in vision, decrease in vision. So the signs could be you find a glow perforation, you find an entry wound, corneal edema. Here you can see an iris hole, you see an obvious foreign body in the anterior chamber. You could see localized cataract, you could see the foreign body in the lenticular space. These are the various forms. And looking at the retina, you could see a foreign body sitting on the retina in the vitreous cavity. There could be vitreous hemorrhage, retinal detachment, retinal incarceration. And sometimes there could be the worst case scenario, it could be compounded with infection or endophthalmitis also. So there are special foreign bodies which can cause some other effects in the eye, like for example, copper, and this causes extracellular deposition in the limiting membranes as a KF ring or a sunflower cataract like here. It could cause metallic particles in the anterior chamber along the vitreous membranes, as well as on the retina on the ileum like a greenish hue. Now, iron can also cause these chemical reactions directly around the vicinity of the foreign body or indirectly. It can form a rustring in the cornea. It can cause some form of aniridia in the iris, not aniridia, sorry, atrophy of the iris leading to heterochromia. The pupil could be non-reacting, mid-dilated, and can cause sclerotic cataracts. In the retina, it can cause this pigmentary changes in the periphery, leading to peripheral constriction of the fields, night blindness, and abnormal dark adaptation. People could mistake this as a atypical retinitis pigmentosa also, or an old settled retinal detachment. ERG shows it could be extinguished or it could be a negative ERG. Detection of a foreign body is history forms the main crux of the whole thing, asking the nature of the injury, the circumstances, then whether there was a foreign body there, a likelihood of contamination, the force of impact, and the pre-existing ocular conditions. So the ideal way would be detection of the foreign body by direct visualization, the way you can see it here. Or you could use the various imaging modalities that Dr. Sonal has already spoken to us about. It could be to begin with, just an X-ray to pick it up if it's metallic, or you could do a CT scan if the patient's able to afford. A CT would be ideal. And as she said, we could miss certain wooden foreign bodies or if they're very small. And an ultrasound would be ideal also because it gives you the other local pathologies, whether there's vitritis, vitreous hemorrhage, retinal detachment. But in an open globe, it is controversial. So if we do it, we do attempt it very slowly and gently and by a senior retinal surgeon or a senior retinal fellow preferably. So the management, the general principles is careful examination, preventing further damage. You do give, like any injury, there's prophylaxis against infection and tetanus. The primary aim is to restore globe integrity, as Dr. Natarajan has shown with his previous videos, and IOFP extraction if possible in the primary setting itself, and the treatment of whatever concurrently is involved in the eye. So primary wound closure, usually the entry site is in the cornea, 65%. It could be in the sclera or it could involve the cornea sclera like here it is. That is a little, that's seen only in 10% of the cases. And as I said, we would attempt to remove the foreign body in the primary setting. Now, I'm just going to share a video to show an external approach for the removal of the foreign body when it's embedded in the ocular codes. Here you can see how the muscles have been tagged and the scleral wound has been sutured so far with 7-0 Vicryl. And then you can see the foreign body here being visualized. And after the muscle is disinserted because it's so posterior, then with the help of forceps, we go ahead and extract the foreign body. And then go ahead and suture as posteriorly as it is possible with 7-0, then reinsert the muscle and close the globe. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. So if the foreign body is inside the eye in the vitreous cavity, non-magnetic are usually more difficult to remove. If it's small, inert, very close to the optic nerve, it may even be watched. If it's magnetic, it's easier to remove. So you do a 3-port vitrectomy, make 3 sclerotomies, clear the vitreous, all the attachments to the foreign body. If it's magnetic, you can use a magnet, and then you do a handshake technique where you transfer the foreign body to the foreign body forceps. And then if it's a smaller foreign body, less than 5 millimeters, you would prefer to remove it through the sclerotomy itself. If it is a larger foreign body, then you would want to make a separate limbal incision and remove it. So this is a video that I'm just going to fast forward along. So as you can see, it was a glass irregular foreign body. So after doing a complete vitrectomy, I put in a PFCL bubble, but unfortunately it went over the foreign body and didn't really help to float it because of the density of the foreign body. Then I've used the 3-prong forceps here to try and, because the edges were irregular, I thought maybe that would be able to hold the foreign body, and I've attempted that. But unfortunately, I couldn't get a good grasp of it with the 3-pronged foreign body holding forceps. And then I went in with a regular straight forceps. Yeah, and that brought out the foreign body with the help of the straight forceps. And then as you bring it on, I've made a scleral limbal tunnel here. So this patient actually had an IOL. So what I've not shown is the explantation of the IOL in the beginning of the surgery. And I've kept that wound, opened it again now, and then remove the foreign body using the handshake technique where your retinal forceps hands over the foreign body to your lens holding forceps, and then you bring it out. And then at the end of surgery, so not all patients need to be left aphakic. We can actually help these patients. And this was a large foreign body, so I prefer to remove it through the limbal route. And anyway, I had removed the IOL and prepped it already. Then the capsule was intact in this patient. And so hence at the end of surgery, we could actually implant the IOL back, the 3-piece IOL, and then suture the wound. So the patient is doing extremely well, was 612 at his last follow-up, and it was sutured. This is another where we've used, the patient had vitreous hemorrhage, so PVD was induced and the vitrectomy was done, had a foreign body impacted in the retina as well as retinal detachment. So a chandelier was used here, and chandelier was inserted. PFCL was put to stabilize the posterior pole, and then the foreign body was extracted through the, it had embedded itself subretinally, was extracted and removed. Since it was a small one, it was removed through the sclerotomy itself. And a forceps was ready to hold it as it and grip it so that it doesn't slip back again. And then the retina was attached because there was a retinal detachment there, and laser done and oil inserted. This is a patient where endophthalmitis had complicated the situation. So initially a vitrectomy was done to clear the infected vitreous, all the vitreous membranes.
Ma'am, your time is up, so if you can just conclude the session.
Yes, I'm just doing that. We have a little time since we lack a speaker, but anyway.
In Aisha, there is one speaker who's not there, so we have some extra 9 minutes. So don't stop anybody.
No problem. If we have some extra time, then ma'am, you can continue. If the speaker is not coming and presenting, then you can continue.
One speaker is absent, so we get 9 minutes from there.
And I'm just concluding.
Sure.
So
No
this
problem.
ILM forceps, I had to just broaden it a little so that it fits into, so that it's able to pick on the foreign body because it wasn't opening up wide enough. And then this foreign body was removed, as you can see here. And this needed a limbal wound also. This is the handshake technique where we are making sure that the grip is not lost and it doesn't fall back into the vitreous cavity again. And then this will be my last, sorry, not this. This is the last video where I'm, again, this patient had endophthalmitis. So vitrectomy was done to clear the infected vitreous. Just rushing through this. I'm just going to show the part where the foreign body is. The view is hazy because of the cornea as well as the vitritis, which is being cleared now. And that's the foreign body. Now an intraocular magnet is used and you can see how it just clings on to the intraocular magnet. It just jumps up like that. Yeah. And then it's removed through the usual route. It was a small enough foreign body, so it could be removed from the sclerotomy wound itself. Again, the handshake technique, making sure that we don't lose the foreign body. Yeah, so the complications could be, as discussed, cataract, retinal detachment, endophthalmitis, sidrosis, and sympathetic ophthalmia. The prognosis depends on the initial visual outcome. As Sir said, the time of the surgery, earlier intervention, whether retina was attached, detached, whether it's vitreous hemorrhage, infection, the mechanism of injury. And the take-home message is prevention is always better than cure. So to educate people, promote use of eye protection, especially in cases of occupational injury. A high index of suspicion for the foreign body and early surgical intervention saves vision. Good documentation, counseling, and medico-legal cover is essential because at the end of the day, how much ever we explain to the patient, their expectations always remain there. So to make sure our counseling and legal cover is there, we've documented everything well. If required, even video recording of the consent is essential. Thank you very much.